Hello, I'm Katie Manning, and you're very lucky because you're listening to Gallifrey Public Radio. Enjoy!
This is Gallifrey Public Radio, dedicated to positive enjoyment of Doctor Who. We travel through classic and new episodes, explore the extended universe, and play a few games from time to time. We do discuss news, content that has been officially released, and the occasional interesting rumor, but we'll warn you before anything considered spoilers comes up. Welcome to episode 521 of Gallifrey Public Radio. I'm Kier.
I'm Haley.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Julie. The first BBC/Disney Plus collaborative season continues with Stephen Moffat in the writer's chair again, penning the thriller Boom.
I'm a much bigger bang than you bargained for. I'm a lot more explosive than I look, and honey, I know how I look. Put a quantum chain reaction through me and I will shatter this silly little battlefield of yours into dust. All of it, in a heartbeat, into dust.
That's not possible.
Everything is possible. Everything is possible. Everywhere is a beach eventually. Scan me. Scan me, see for yourself.
Return to that heady heyday where Stephen Moffat is writing for Russell T Davies.
It's a good pairing.
I mean, yeah, this is supposed to be the stuff that like legendary episodes are made of, right?
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, it held up to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was pretty incredible.
What was it? What would you say is the element of the story? Because it's a rather straightforward story. I mean, there's some filler to sort of flesh the story out a little bit, make it seem a little more three-dimensional. But at the heart of it is a sort of a bottle episode, almost one location throughout.
Mm-hmm.
What is the thing that resonates with you when you look back on it after however many times you've watched it?
The thing I realized that I missed in the first two episodes that made me think, okay, this is good, but we're not quite there yet. This brought the intensity I have come to associate with Doctor Who.
Intensity as far as thrill or
the thrill, danger? The stakes. I mean, let's be honest. We knew none of the babies were ever going to get harmed.
Well, there's that one.
Right. The Doctor and Ruby were really the only ones that, I mean, yes, the Maestro killed other people, but they were ancillary side characters that really didn't play a whole lot into the grand scheme of things. So our only stake really is in Ruby and the Doctor, and we know they're going to be okay. So the world's not going to end in 1963. So we kind of knew there was going to be a decent resolution to that one. This one, you weren't quite sure how anything was going to play out.
Ruby taking a shot to the back?
Chest, I think.
No, it was the chest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Shot to the chest.
I very briefly thought we were going to see her, regenerate.
No, not yet. She doesn't have that skill yet.
Yet.
The first shot made me like, I was like, oh, okay, well, she's going to get shot, and then there's going to be things. And then she got shot 4 more times, and I was like, are they going to do some timey-wimey stuff to bring in Ruby for the rest of the... Because I think she's going down right now.
She's just an AI now.
And the fact that we had some actual death in the beginning, a disintegration and a bottling, compression. Yeah,
it's almost like a tissue compression eliminator. That's kind of gross. And they're all okay with it. Like picking up this, I don't want to call it a flesh tube, but it's a flesh tube.
What does it feel like is what I want to know. Dry skin?
Do you really want to know, Haley?
I have a morbid curiosity.
Yeah. For me, the emotional undertones that carried throughout this episode was really what grabbed me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of my thoughts was everyone was talking about how much the Doctor ran in the last 2 episodes, and then in this episode, he doesn't move the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally different muscle set.
Yeah.
Fast twitch, slow twitch.
No twitch.
Everything's getting worked. Zero twitch.
I think that's one of the things that I appreciated most about this was it existed primarily on the dialogue. There wasn't a whole lot of action. They didn't move anywhere. There were no, exciting visuals or things like that. So it really just relied on the conflict between people and the conversations they were having.
Right. The poignancy of that too, the irony of what those conversations were, fitting that exactly. Almost as if intended.
And the fact that we saw we got a couple of lines in the last 2 episodes that could be pointed at certain subsets, I guess, but this one felt both more direct and not. I don't know. There were comments that were made that some people will absolutely take offense to, but they were not directly targeted, if that makes sense.
The line that it is, Ruby says, "Since when is the church the Marines?" And the Doctor says, "Your entire history, you're living in a blip." If you look back on the Crusades, any of this other kind of stuff that's in definitely our history, it always has been that way. So it's just kind of calling out that same cyclical, this has happened before, it will happen again, this is just how it goes. A little more capitalism this time.
Yeah, but just pick your favorite holy war.
Right.
Past, present, or future. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, just this time they're fighting literally nothing.
Yes. So the unprepared or surface level viewer of a lot of content may recognize some of the tones that get struck here from things like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the potshots that get taken at Stark Industries for being war profiteers. And so if they at least grasp that concept or have seen that put to screen in that capacity, they'll recognize where this is angling. But I think this swings pretty hard at that concept, at the idea of capitalism over compassion, the idea of how these Anglican Marines, these clerical, I don't mean clerical like office workers, cleric.
Cleric-AL.
Right. Are incorporating their faith or their justification into their dialogue has a tendency to be almost as if convincing oneself that this is how it's done. And I've heard some shots being taken at Moffat already about, well, clearly you haven't spoken to enough people of faith to understand where they would really lie on this. But I'm sorry, history speaks for itself. You may have individuals who are absolutely what and how they claim to be on all levels, surface level and within, and they take their faith and the tenets of what holds that up very seriously, and it becomes part of their personality and their process and their being, and that's wonderful for them. There are many others for whom it absolutely does not apply. It is lip service, or it is just a facade to advance whatever it is that they wanted to do in the first.
And the fact that, like, even in this episode, you can see where Moffat is not strictly targeting faith. You get the comment of, it's like, oh, faith, the magic word that means that you no longer have to think for yourself kind of thing. But then at the end, Mundy says something like, I thought you hated faith. And the Doctor's like, faith is necessary. It is not the concept of faith that is being targeted here. It's the weaponization of it. It is an incredibly powerful thing, but it can very easily be pointed in the wrong direction.
And faith as belief versus believing in, or faith, blind faith. that just says, I will do this because it's how I've been told. Like, when they show up and just shots fired, it's warning them that's standard protocol. Why? Why do we do it that way? Because it's how it's always been done, or that's what they tell us to do. That's the same thing as an acceptable or costly savings when someone takes 4 weeks for their eyes to heal. So, nope, they're not worth it. That's kind of ridiculous, but that's what their faith has told them. This was an okay death.
Was there anything, did you take something away from the fact that, and I'm sorry, I'm going to jump towards our conclusion for a second, because this is just, as we're talking about sort of statements and messages that have been laced through this, of which the episode is chock-a-block full of them. Take your pick. We touch on all kinds of things, either through the dialogue or the circumstances that result. But you've got a solution that is brought to bear by a decision that is consciously, made by an artificial entity.
It said that there was some of his personality retained in the AI.
As far as it being built on its understanding of his persona.
Yeah.
It said that there was some of him in it so that it could interact, and it was just enough, but it was able to interact with new stimuli as he might. So, yes and no. Like, I think, yes, there's an element of AI that is that sort of like robots are going to take over the world, but it's built in with some humanization. So how far that goes with the dad-to-dad call, I think it's a very interesting take on how that could be expanded.
I will admit that as a father sitting with my kid at my hip watching this, and they are very empathetic, as we've probably noted on the show on more than one occasion. And they were very disturbed through a lot of this episode over genuine concern for the state of all the characters. And obviously the fact that we have a couple of instances where characters are either presumed dead, Ruby's laying there with a countdown going on her as she's rolling death saves. And you've got soldiers, Anglican Marines who we're watching being taken out in front of our eyes. And then, so I'm working with them and trying to console them and tell them it's all right. Dr. and Ruby are always going to pull through in the end on this one. Fingers crossed that Ruby's going to pull through in the end on this one. And we get towards the final minutes, and kiddo's calming down, and they're sort of appreciating the fact that Doctor's happy again. So everything is great in that regard because the solution is being found, and they're talking about the fact that it is this lengths that a father or any parent really would go to. And that's tough. I've just been through an emotional ringer and experiencing it alongside my kid who's going through a ringer entirely their own. I was exhausted by the end of this episode.
It's very interesting to see the different characters that you had come in there and the different dynamics that they could bring, and the different emotions that it all evokes. You have one character who's, for half a moment, I don't really care if they're included in the story at all. Then they come in and they are the utmost villain because they just shot Ruby. And then you get a bit of sympathy as there's like this love confession. I'm like, is this really the time? And then it's not a problem anymore. Just that one character who was ancillary, who wasn't like, I think his name was Kanto. And it took me like 4 viewings to be able to remember that. like the roller coaster that I went on for this guy was something amazing. So they were all pulling at different things and watching who picks up on what. I was watching with my kids as well, who are, a little bit older. And so they can pick up on some of the more, I don't want to say subtle tones, but watching my 13-year-old, their expression just drastically change at the first mention of thoughts and prayers. And I realized the resonance that carried for a kid who is still in school, who is, like, that's a trigger word or a trigger phrase, so it's seeing the different things that people pick out of this is also great. And it just shows the strength of Moffat's writing.
Talking about some of the characters that we saw again, and maybe I caught this more on the second viewing when it kind of zoomed in on her face, but Susan Twist.
Yep.
As our actor.
As the ambulance.
As the ambulance. So does that mean she has been in every single episode thus far?
She has.
Yeah, she's already credited for the next one, too.
Who is she, the mom? Is she the drop off? And now she's just tracking Ruby literally through 3,000. Ruby just turned, 20 something? So 3,040 something, 60 something years into the future.
Math is fun, y'all.
Math is hard. I did not do this math in advance.
It adds a little bit of weight to that, the one who waits title. It's like, clearly she's waited.
She's literally everywhere. Yeah.
Well,
but she never ages. Like, you never see a young...
That we know of.
Well, right, that we know of. But it seems like this is more of kind of like a... If this is the case, this is like The Watcher sort of thing, but this is a watcher that likes to get down and mess with the plebes while watching. So
Vanguard presumably is across the human expansion of the universe. So that means
Villengard, Villengard was actually first referenced in the Doctor Dances. Wow. And the first and 12th Doctors actually went to Villengard on the in Twice Upon a Time. Cool.
So her face being on the ambulances that have been created for this, that would be, if she's 3,000, I'm going to do a little more math. So it's 4,000 something, right? Because if she's 3,080 something, and we're just at 2024, so add
somewhere in the fives.
It's 5,000 something.
Yeah.
Okay. Not 5 digits, only 4.
This is riveting podcast material right here.
You know what? Well, walk with me.
Julie did that math in her head. She didn't bring up her fingers and count or anything.
You're just going to hear a little wheedly whoop effect. And
you can do that. We'll cut it out. It's fine.
We're going to jump to Julie's final calculation. That's it. It's 5,200.
Cut out the last 2 minutes of everyone ragging on me as well, if you please. Fair enough. Anyway, so she has been there in when they were at the Beatles too, though. So all the way from that point to now. So who is she? Will she keep showing up? I want to see more of her, but it's creeping me out now.
The other thing that's weird is we have this unexplained elderly female character and a totally other unexplained elderly female character. Mrs. Flood. Is there any relation between these two women? Are they the same woman, like with different faces? I don't know, but I think we've got one too many mysteries because that's even all before Ruby.
Okay. So the question is, which one of them is the white guardian? Which one's the black one? And where are their bird headdresses?
Oh, see, now it's like a brooch.
If they start sprouting feathers, it's sus.
So what was the moment that really stuck with you the most coming out of your first viewing? What was it that, like, you look back on it and said that was amazing?
Frailty. This gave me a sense of the Doctor being intrinsically aware of the danger that he had put himself in and potentially so many others. And I don't know if that's something where we may see the repercussions of that, but this is something where, you know, we come into this, however many months have elapsed that they've been traveling, banging about together, having some adventures, having some good laughs. They're getting to be closer and closer. I hear somebody in danger. You're on a war-torn planet. I'm going to go run off and see what's going on. And oopsie poopsies, I've stepped on this thing. Is that a point where our title character is going to look back on that and say, I've been letting my guard down. I've been letting this become too much enjoyment. And though I say I have no mission, I have no agenda, maybe I have a responsibility that I've been ignoring for a bit.
Presumably when they open the TARDIS doors, they don't necessarily know it's a war-torn planet.
True.
There are scanners on that thing, right? Like, he can know when and where he lands.
He hasn't been using them. Are there dinosaurs outside? I don't know. Are there war people outside? I don't know. But I just feel like you think he knew. I think that he is rushing off into it because I save people. That's what I do, is kind of the vibe he's giving off. And you only have to save people who are in danger. So you are, as to your point, intrinsically putting yourself in danger. You don't always know the resolution is going to be a positive one. In this case, it was, 33% not good. 2 people died. 3 people died. I'm not going to math again.
No.
The thing that, and kind of it ties into your thing, Kier, but the thing that stuck with me after the first viewing, the one little clip that kept playing in my head was that pained cry that the doctor gave out when Ruby was shot. Like, I don't know what it was about how Gatwa did that, but it was just, you could feel the emotion in it. You could feel the helplessness and the frustration and the fear. And it stuck with me so much. And I think, to your point, Kier, like, that could be a transformative point for this iteration of our Doctor.
And something that happened because of this whole situation is there would be moments where the Doctor would cry, like when Ruby got shot. And the tears would still be on his face later in the scene because he can't wipe them away. He can't move. So you just have that image of him with these tear marks still on his face because he can't do anything about it. So that was just a very
being joined by future tear marks because
right.
Things just kept getting worse.
It's not a great day for the Doctor.
One of the
that
things
should have been the title of the episode. Not a great day for the Doctor.
How that hasn't been an episode title yet, I don't know.
The Doctor and the no good, horrible, terrible, very bad day.
Yep.
The moment for me that stuck out and did so again is when the Doctor, more towards the end after the resolution, says something about this kid's dad saved the day. So it's not about the Doctor. It's not about anybody else that did much for it, but it's pointing out to her that her dad did something and she can keep that going. And when he says later on, I think something like she'll be the president, that to me says celebrate this kid's dad and that connection to family that, while not a great ending, and hopefully she kind of carries his remains with her and that gives her some hope, but this whole series will be a discovery of family. And so seeing Ruby without that connection and who is my next of kin, she has no answer for that. And then she kind of lets go. So having the Doctor recognize and celebrate that moment just really stuck out for me.
Well, another thing that came from that same scan is I kind of think Ruby is probably human because the ambulance didn't say like, oh, unknown life form detected or whatever it said when it picked up on the Doctor.
Yeah. Did anyone get a good look at the readout?
No.
I don't think it showed anything. It just said her age, 3,082 years. After it had given the other guy was 42 or something like that. So it's like clearly counting how long technically she's been alive.
Right.
I think maybe it just has access to her birth records. So it's like, oh, she was born in, 2004, which is just an absurd year for someone to have been born in.
That's not real.
So I think it was just doing the math from the date of birth that it had on record.
From blood sample of daggers that got stabbed in, those looked like whale harpoon bits.
Yeah, it was a bit much for I go and get my blood pressure taken, and they do my O2 levels. All they have to do is put like a little plastic alligator clip on my fingertip.
Yeah. When did we go away from
me.
fingerprints and start stabbing our patients?
Well, when we decided that the ambulance is also going to be what kills you, so you got to make sure they can't run away.
Tethered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stand still and let me heal you.
Or not.
Or shrink you down into this convenient thermos.
One of the things that kind of bothered me through this episode was the character of Splice. I feel like the level of cluelessness was a little bit too exaggerated. And the way that I kind of felt it was, I think Moffat wrote this for a much younger child than was cast. Because if you have
I also think Moffat doesn't write kids very well.
Well, if you have like a 3 or 4 year old, you can understand them being like very focused on where's my dad? Like all this stuff is going on. But this kid, it's like she should have a sense that she's in a war zone, and she just doesn't.
Well, like running towards the hologram.
She needs to either be more scared to justify, I just want my daddy because he's safety, or have some sense of, of presence. I don't know. But there was something that just didn't fit right with me. And I'm like, if I can rewind her head, if she's like a 4-year-old, I think I can get on board with that.
Yeah. Well, you talk about Moffat's ability or inability to write for kids. The kids that he writes that are entertaining and compelling are the precocious ones, right? Mm-hmm. Because then you don't have to write. You can just write like a little grown up, and isn't it just whimsical that this little child has this amazing personality and intelligence level and so on. So you've got your Amelia Pond for 11th Hour and things. These are just precocious kids that have these abilities to just they seem age transcendent. But I guess trying to write one like Splice, that name is just going to continue to trip me up, but so be it.
She's a hacker.
Well, I'm wondering. Oh, well, no, that'd be a slicer. But I was kind of lost from the whole idea of the special dispensation that Dad had to bring her to this planet in the first place. Like all of those things just felt like just thorns in my accepting of this character, and I just kept pushing back on it. Not to mention the fact that I recognized the actor. I'm like, I spent most of the episode just thinking, where else have I seen this kid? Which shouldn't normally pull me out of an episode, but it did. I don't know how they could have altered the way that she was being portrayed or the dialogue that she was being given. It seemed like it was metered out carefully enough to keep her relevant to the scene going on without necessarily becoming an obstacle to the scene. So she was almost a human MacGuffin.
I kind of took it that she's so naive because she hasn't actually been taught or told what's really going on. Which I don't want to get too overly political or religious on this podcast, but that kind of the way that she's told, like, mommy's just passed on. She's not dead. She's just moved to the next life kind of thing.
God gathered her on.
God gathered her up and took her to the next. So, like, what does that education look like for her being in a war zone? Do they even have time to teach her? Does she understand that she should be afraid, that she shouldn't be running out into the middle of a battle zone? Because this is clearly, there's live landmines. She should stay within the compound. Or is it just so bad that kids these days are oblivious because there is no education for that type of world? She shouldn't have even been there. There's no teacher, and she's just told, stay at home, brush your teeth, and that's it. There's no protocols. There's no sentry keeping her in. They were, like, she was able to run a mile out, and no one was watching her.
She also knew where to go, which was odd. On, like, a whole planet that's an entire battlefield, she knew exactly where to go. She
said I could read a geocode. So everybody's canister individual things are geocoded. So when Kanto calls later on, he says, I know where you are. I read your geocode, or whatever it was called. So I think that was pretty well determined with their phones in their cheeks, and the AI of the world always knows where they are. And they can find each other by looking in their eyeballs? I don't know. None of them had screens. They just touched their cheek. Which I thought that was a weird line. Do you know your face is ringing?
They had to
kind
get
of
hit with
shift.
But yet they had to get hit with harpoons in order to check their vitals.
Right. Yes, indeed.
Some of the stuff didn't make much sense. Like the landmine. Okay, so it has sensors to determine if it's a live target. Mm-hmm. But once it reaches the end of a countdown, it fails safe and just blows up anyway. So why are there sensors and why is there a delay? Why doesn't it just blow up? If it's going to blow up regardless.
Right. Wouldn't a failsafe mean it does not blow up? Unless, no, that makes sense. It fails safe in that world means it takes out whatever potential risk there was.
It should have just gone off.
Yeah, why does
why the delay? Yeah. Because it could be a valuable target that does save them money, and they don't want to waste the marketing of the lights.
Are you saying if an ambulance accidentally rolls over it?
But also, if there's no life form there, it converts like whatever life form is there into the explosive. So if there's no life form there, it just doesn't detonate, right?
Right.
So like, why wouldn't it always?
It's like
just
fueling itself,
detonate.
Kind of. Yeah. Because then we wouldn't have a story, but also
yeah, that's the true nature of it.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up to a lot of scrutiny. So if you were to really analyze the heck out of it, it doesn't. This is supposed to be an emotional journey.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we all know we're not supposed to like critique the science of Doctor Who too much.
Yeah, look away. One of the pieces that really stuck out to me was the music again coming into this episode with the doctor singing to try to reduce his heart rate, and then
we went Outlander.
Keep himself keep himself calm. It's not Outlander, it's just a traditional song,
but it is Outlander's theme.
But it is Outlander,
yeah. But then also it was the song that he and Ruby used to do a timed handoff, which that to me, it speaks to the duration of time that they have been traveling together now, which we got a date of October 5th. And so I think we've seen a time jump, but it just illustrates that they know each other so well that they would understand that would be the beat on which they could communicate that physical motion of a handoff. It's more like a dance than toss me this. So kind of 2 points there, I guess. But yeah, the musical inclusion, and then also how do we feel about the time jumps we're not seeing, all this travel that they're doing, presumably, and that also it's taken the Doctor 10 months to set foot on a planet that has a cool sunrise or planet rise of some kind. What have they been doing? And when do we get the webisodes of that?
Mm-hmm. Another interesting thing is I don't think we've ever been given this many dates in a Doctor Who story before. Like, I don't remember ever knowing how much time had passed with the companion. So that they're giving us that pretty much every episode, I think is going to be important.
Yeah.
This may be Moffat level trolling to a certain degree, putting a lot of breadcrumbs out there that don't add up to a nice slice of bread because it's fun.
Do you mean RTD?
No, Moffat specifically.
Oh, but
under
he didn't write the
advisement.
last one. Well, sure.
So we're carrying on with a theme here. So we've got you were talking earlier about how many mysteries are too many mysteries. The dates that are going on here. So it's to jump to the end of Julie's math. It's 5,037.
Thank you.
On Casterian.
I don't need to do
3?
it. I can kick off and someone else does the math.
But I know when we get these jumps, I think it's more entertaining to see each episode begin with them saying, "Boy, wasn't that great? That's fantastic. We got to do all these other things," and you don't actually get to necessarily see what those are, because it does establish the fact that, all right, the world clock is still ticking, sort of a thing from a viewer's perspective. But at the same time, it also leaves the door open for your comic writers, your novel writers, your audio play writers, and things to be able to play in that space when the time comes. So, including BBC themselves and their own sanctioned creators. So, I understand it and I appreciate it. Now, when we get to things like, you're talking about when do we hit the tipping point of the mysteries? So we dealt with this rumor months ago that Millie Gibson was, someone else's words, canned for the second season. She was off the show and she was going to be replaced by Varada Setu. And then we find that was a misinterpretation of whatever stolen information or facts or leaks or what have you, and that they're actually going to be, they were filming together and they are going to be co-companions going into the second BBC/Disney Plus series. But she's here now as Monday. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And though I understand that that's not necessarily supposed to be her character into the next season, the Doctor does say towards the end something like, I'm sure we'll see each other again.
Says, I'm going to check in on you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, so, they pinned Moffat against the wall and said, what does this mean? And they asked Russell about it. And Russell said, hee hee hee. And it's like, okay, add that to the mystery pile. That's fine.
So are you thinking,
well, we've had them just bring back actors before to, like, they were just, the character, and then they become Amelia Pond or the Doctor or, Gwyn or whoever. Like, they just, like, they like the actor, and then they decide, oh, well, yeah, we've used them, but we also would love to have them back as a companion, and we're just gonna do whatever the thing they said when they saw Gwyn. Something about like, temporal reincarnation or something like that.
And I'm hoping that that's because of the fact that this is happening in such short order, that's what they're going to do. They're going to say,
I've met your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother.
Yeah. But also we met Clara in an episode where she died and then came back as Clara for real. And it was like a whole big giant plot point. So both possibilities in the world of Doctor Who.
I don't think that it's going to be the Clara route. I think that's kind of you get one trick one time. But I don't know. Part of me wants to say that it's just they were looking for a companion, like another companion to add, and they had already cast Varada for this one and said, hey, she's really good. Let's give her more. And it could be as simple as that.
An extended screen test.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, RTD doing what RTD do, he's just, dialing up the troll dial to 11 just for the heck of it.
I do hope if she comes, well, we know she's back, but I do hope they work it in somehow. So it's not just hand wavy, don't mention it,
Right.
and then, But I wouldn't be surprised, to your point, that it just, the three of them hit it off really well and it worked. And they said, we've been looking for a cast member to join and you're the one we want. Now let's make it fit. Hopefully, I would say. Because
people have brought it up multiple times in interviews and things like that. And because RTD has specifically said, like, yeah, we're excited to bring her on earlier than anticipated or something like that. Like, they're going to have to say something in the course of the show. How much that plays into things, it might just be the generational multiplicity thing that something as simple as that. Mm-hmm. But they do have to address it.
Yeah,
you could actually play into the fact that we've been, at least on a couple of occasions in recent episodes, been poking at the idea of coincidence. And just saying, maybe this is something where you call it coincidence, but there are times when you cross paths with somebody that it is something where it is almost a predestination. These energies within the universe are just occasionally, if they come anywhere close to one another, they are just drawn a little bit closer. It's a bit of a gravitational pull among these energy signatures that happen to be this being and this being. So they're going to cross a few times in one form or another. So, which would be perfectly acceptable and within sort of the universe's constructs as we've witnessed it, and I'd be satisfied as a viewer. That'd be enough. It's the Gwen Cooper solution.
I think also it would be really fun to see if they just go with, hey, we picked her up again after some time. We checked in and now she's ready to go travel because her person died, right? So if that's the case, what is that time gap in the way that their cultures live, and then putting them in the TARDIS together? So someone from 2024 and someone from 5037. That would be fun if they did it right. Yeah.
Deacon and Nissa?
Jamie and
Zoe?
Yeah, Zoe. Yeah, because she was from a future time as well.
And a mathematician.
RTD has said that when she comes back, Mundy's story is done. But we're not going to see that character again.
Okay.
Like, she's not coming back to play that character. So we at least know that it's going to be someone different.
It's her great grandparent, or it's her great grandchild, or someone unrelated but just eerily looks like her.
Great granddaughter. Yeah.
She's the Ronnie and picks someone from the Doctor's brain.
There really are only 12 actors in Britain, so they had to use somebody again.
All in all, I mean, this feels like a tremendous return to form. It is, this stands to the level of like Blink or Listen. It has that same kind of excitement, of tension, of quality writing. For everyone that has tapped out at some point over the past 6-7 years, this is a great one to be like, hey, look, it's back. It's back the way that you remember it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say there was also the lines at the end that the Doctor spoke about love, what we are when we melt away, that kind of thing. It reminds me of some of the Fourth Doctor quotes, like, we're all stories in the end, let's make it a good one, and some of those other quotable lines that we've heard throughout. So I appreciate that they're putting them in there, but also it kind of ran on, but I did like it.
It's good to occasionally know that you're going to get these little aphorisms and fortune cookie statements from a being that has been around for countless millennia, because you're going to pick up certain adages that have been literally time tested and they hold up. So when you get one of those little pearls of wisdom from the Doctor, it's probably got some validity to it.
And then a genuine hug.
Genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Doesn't hurt that the actors absolutely adore one another.
Yeah. You can tell. It's great.
We'll be back in a week to discuss the next episode, 73 Yards. But while you wait, consider becoming a GPR supporter on Patreon. We've been ad-free for over a decade, and with your support, we can cover production and hosting costs, put out the best free content, and reward our patrons with some GPR exclusives. Thanks to everyone who has supported us, past and present.
And future.
I can't thank them yet. Schrodinger's supporter.
We'll thank them when they support us, not before.
This has been episode 521 of Gallifrey Public Radio. Until next time, this is Jay saying, kiss, kiss.
This is Kier saying, that's me in a thermos. That's me in a meat flask because of my religion.
I can't go after that. This is Julie saying, everywhere is a beach eventually.
And this is Haley saying, sharp scratch.
We'll see you next time.
I'll see.
Tag, you're it.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Gallifrey Public Radio. As a fan-run podcast, your thoughts and opinions are part of the conversation. Leave us a comment or review on your preferred podcast app, find us on social media to message us, or visit GallifreyPublicRadio.com for email and voicemail contacts. We'll see you out there in time and space.
Hi, this is Jacob. This recording of Gallifrey Public Radio is copyrighted in 2024. GPR is a fan-owned, fan-produced podcast. We'll see you next time!